Thank you, Dorsey, from sparing me from listening to that lineup of speeches again, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to survive another 4 days of this, guys. You don't have to watch it. We do, because we are doing a show for you. Welcome to the Nomiki Show. I am Nomiki Konst. Trump National Convention, Day 2. We will be hearing tonight from one of America's best-known immigrants, telling us one of those moving only in America stories. Indeed, in what other country could someone born under the yoke of communism migrate here with barely €1 and a dream? Oh, and yes, an invite from a modeling agency, and then go on to meet her love of her life at the Kit Kat Club and become the First Lady of the United States. It really makes your patriotic juices flow red, white, and blue. That's right, today's speaker is Melania Trump. She is the featured speaker who parlayed that H-1B visa into all she is today. I'm very curious, will she discuss immigration reform? All right, let's get real. Watching day one of this Trump National Convention, we have to acknowledge we aren't just living in a divided nation. We are living in a completely different nation from the one that they presented last night. In our nation, Trump dithered and denied, and 180,000 people died in the pandemic in this country. In their nation, Trump empowered scientists to create a vaccine that will be ready any day now. In our nation, unions protect working people and help us win our fair share. In their nation, unions crush freedom and economic opportunity. In our nation, standing outside of your house with firearms to threaten protesters in the street is a crime. In theirs, it's an act of heroism. It gets you a primetime speaking spot at the convention. In our nation, we want to save the planet by getting off of fossil fuels. On their planet, we want to destroy the economy by getting off of fossil fuels. Oh, what will they do when their 5th vacation home is underwater? Do they see what's happening with the hurricanes in the Gulf right now? In our nation, progressives want to redeem the promise of America with policies that work. In their nation, the radical left is going to destroy your jobs, white people's jobs, your homes, white people's homes, and your dreams, white people's dreams. In our nation, we want to face America's flaws so we can heal and make a more perfect union that protects all people. In their nation, we want to blame America first. Well, I think that they missed the message from last week's DNC. We aren't blaming America, which they seem to think is just white people. We are blaming Donald Trump, a failed president, a blame everyone else first president. But blaming the Chinese Communist Party for the coronavirus, what he loves to call the China virus, doesn't change that he mishandled the challenge, that he mishandled the crisis. I'm not the only one being driven mad by the weirdness of this Trump convention. Check out this conversation on Fox News this morning between former DNC chair Donna Brazile and Tammy Bruce, who's a former Democrat and now a Republican commentator. Dorsey, do we have that clip? Can we roll that?
This is why the choir sounds like a note coming from a scratch record. Well, it sounds like I will never be an American in your world, because after 400 years, my family cannot.
Of course you are.
That is not what anyone
walk out this house without anyone said.
Violence.
No one is saying that.
Tammy, listen.
Donna,
yes, you are. Because you're Tammy. You are saying that to me.
Last night was your message
what are you saying to me?
You're saying to me. What was it about last night you didn't like,
you need
Donna?
to listen as well as talk.
So you want to know what Tammy's saying to you? So let Tammy answer.
I listen to you, and what you do is you ignore the pains of people who are hurt.
What was
you
it
ignore
about
the
last
pains
night
of
that
people
you did
who
not
just
feel you
want
could
to
relate
breathe.
to?
Tammy, hold on one second.
What was it about
Good, just
that?
Tammy, hold on one second. Donna, okay. So Donna, your point is you're ignoring 400 years. So let Tammy answer you.
Don't be so condescending and patronizing.
That's the Donna Brazile that I remember from the Jesse Jackson campaign. Part of what's infuriating is the hypocrisy of this convention is that people of color are vouching for Donald Trump's racist policies. That's the same Donald Trump who led the mob against the Central Park Five. That is the same Donald Trump whose pandemic dithering disproportionately killed black people. The same Donald Trump who is trying to scare the hell out of suburban white voters right now. Anti-racism isn't about having a friend who's black, even if he is a star football player, which was presented last night on the convention floor. It is about policies. And Donald Trump's policies are racist, blatant, and hidden in his economics, which is one reason that Donald Trump has to go. But here's something to keep in mind. We can't let the fact that they are inhabiting a different country lull us into thinking that this fight is over. Remember, at this time, this very same time, 4 years ago, Hillary Clinton was ahead of Donald Trump in key state polling by just about the same margins as Biden is ahead today. This is far from over. It's why they're attacking the post office. That's why they're trying to suppress the vote. They know how close it is and how close it could be. And as progressives, we need to pay special attention to the last two speakers last night, Nikki Haley and Tim Scott, the daughter of immigrants from India and the grandson of a cotton picker from the South, two people of color appearing at the Republican National Convention, the Trump National Convention. They had moving personal stories and a clear conservative policy proposal. They were there last night, along with all the people of color, to try to reassure wavering moderates that Trump isn't as ugly and racist as he seems. But remember, they are a part of the future of the Republican Party. 1988 will take its talking points back. Trump will be gone eventually, hopefully, and Nikki Haley and Tim Scott will still be there. And all I can say for right now is that Democrats are lucky that they're both from South Carolina. Otherwise, they would be a quite formidable ticket in the future. Okay, the convention organizers call last night's program the Land of Promise. Tonight is the Land of Opportunity and the moving tale from Melania Trump. Here on the Nomiki Show, we're going to guide you through this land of weird. And we have a great show coming up. We have, we're talking about climate activism, and we are going to talk about the confusing racist agenda that occurred last night. But before we get to our first guest, who is Alexandria Villaseñor, who's a climate activist, please make sure to click like and subscribe, that little alert there, so it alerts you that at 3 p.m. every single day this week, we're going to be doing a show on the RNC. Make sure to click that alert. And of course, we're so grateful to our patrons, but patrons, you're the ones who are making this show happen right now. So please join us on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show for as low as $5 a month. Up next, we have Alexandria Villaseñor, and then followed by a panel with Chris Smalls. He took on Amazon the monopoly. And then we have Napoleon de Legend, who is a great musician, and he's a political activist. You may have seen him on the Michael Brooks Show. He's a good friend, and we're really excited to hear his thoughts on the convention as well. So stay tuned.
Quite frankly, somebody with a nice can needs to say this. Are you safer than you were 8 years ago? America! What happened to
it? In your country, I can assure you, there will be hard times and unexpected turns. It would not be a Trump contest without excitement and drama.
America! What happened to it? Those in favor of Donald Trump will say aye. Those opposed,
Donald
shall say no. The ayes have it. White America, let me ask you this question. Are you safer than you were 8 years ago? What happened to there's no black America? There's no black America. There is just blue lives matter in America. Quite frankly, somebody with a nice can needs to say this. Are you safer than you were 8 years ago? America!
America, what is it going to take? Oh, man. I figured we wouldn't necessarily go through all of the the talking points of the RNC, the sound bites, I figured that was enough, and we'll touch on some of it. But I think what's important for us as a movement is to focus on really what's at stake with Republicans in power, and frankly, with neoliberals allowing them to get away with a lot of this power, and focus on how we organize and some of the biggest risks. And I think the first issue that we know that is just the most important issue of all time is climate change. And I am not really sure if my generation, the millennials and older, are going to solve that for us. So I decided who better to bring on than one of the best climate activists in the country. Alexandria Villaseñor is a climate activist. She's an author of All We Can Save. She's the founder of Earth Uprising. She's a follower of Fridays of the Future, for the Future movement, founded by Greta Thunberg. She's the co-founder of U.S. Youth Climate Strike. In May, I can't even believe this, like, she's way more accomplished than all of us. In May of 2019, she received the Disruptor Award from the Tribeca Disruptive Innovation Awards. It's a big deal, and a scholarship from the Common Good, which is a public advocacy organization, and was awarded the Youth Climate Leadership Prize from the Earth Day Network. Alexandria, how do you do this and go to school and save our planet all at the same time? Let's just start with that. And I think you're on mute, so make sure just to click on mute. Oh, you're on mute. Uh-oh. Having trouble hearing you.
There
you are. There we are. Where we got it.
I'll take out the headphones.
Come on, you're supposed to solve this all. You should be. I'm kidding.
I mean, thank you all for having me here today. First of all, sorry if my voice is scratchy. I'm in Davis, California right now, and so we're really close to the wildfires. So it's been difficult keeping the smoke out of our home. So yes. Anyway, for the question, it has been very interesting balancing everything. This year I am going to be a freshman in high school, so I've always had to really look around and make sure that I am balancing school, activism, and having a normal teenager life. And so I've just really had a focus and emphasis on activist burnout and how to prevent it. So making sure I take care of myself and take breaks every once in a while, because activist burnout is a real thing.
It's definitely a thing. I think a lot of us over the last, I personally have felt it, and I will crash and burn. I'm glad that you're learning that at a much younger age than I did, because I think I learned it last year. I'm definitely 20 years older than you. So Alexandria, you have learned a lot of the mechanics of mobilizing around this issue in the last few years in a way that I think previous generations sort of intuitively figured it out, and then later, as they started to see waves of movement building, the elders came in and maybe taught lessons, and there was more traditional training. But how did you get involved in the actual the disruptive side of movement organizing around climate?
Yeah, so it was kind of this journey for me into getting involved. And my first form of activism was actually that direct action kind of, chaos bringing type of action. And so what happened is I'm originally from California, but in 2018, I ended up moving to New York City while my mom studied for her master's. And so I went back and forth quite a lot, and I ended up coming back home in November of 2018 to visit family. And that was when the Paradise Fire happened. And so Paradise was one of California's worst wildfires. And so being very close to it, we ended up getting a lot of the smoke from that wildfire. At one point, it was the worst air quality in the world. And so since it was a very unsafe situation for me, because I have asthma, my family ended up sending me back from that trip early. And I was very upset about that, everything that was happening, because California is on fire all year round. You can look at right now, 1.4 million acres have burned in California. And so this is just becoming the new normal here. We always have fires every year, and I wanted to figure out why that was happening. And I researched and I saw the connection between California's wildfires and climate change. And that was one of the moments, some people call it your epiphany moment. And that was it for me, where I decided that I really needed to do something. And that's what spurred me into getting involved and taking direct action in the first place.
So when you say direct action, what does that mean? I mean, who are you taking direct action against?
Yes, so direct action is, it can really be anything. If you're going out and protesting or going out with a sign, really all of that can be a form of direct action. And there's, nonviolent direct actions. There's just a whole scale. It's really what, you like to do. There's some direct actions where you can go out and, use art as a form of expression. There's so many different things you can do. The form that I used was I ended up going and taking my direct action in the form of a school strike in front of the United Nations headquarters on December 14th of 2018 in following of the Fridays for Future movement. And so I ended up striking every Friday all the way up until the pandemic started. And that's when, us in the youth movement had to start finding new ways to make our voices heard outside of going outside and protesting.
So now that we're in this pandemic, and I have a lot of questions about your plans, during this convention as well. But through this pandemic, what have you guys been working on? Because it is harder to break through the noise, break through the lack of attention. People are at home watching Zoom and TV.
It definitely has been interesting. I think one thing that I'm very fortunate for is, in the youth movement, a lot of young people were already prepared to use technology because we've been using this for a very long time, using Zoom calls to talk with others all across the country and all around the world, using social media to connect with each other. And so we've already known how to use this, but we've just had to take it to a new scale. So using it for our organizing, how can we use social media to even push our politicians especially? And so one thing that I just think is really fun and interesting about this is that we've had the opportunity to teach all of our adult allies, because there are some people coming into this who, don't really know how to use technology that much. Some of my classes, my teachers don't really know how to use Zoom. So it's the young people who are teaching them. And I think that that's an example of intergenerational cooperation, is just teaching each generation, because young people have a lot to teach our adult allies, and adults have a lot to teach the young people.
So we're in the middle of this RNC, and the first day was yesterday, and not once did they mention climate change, not once did they mention the fires, not once did they mention the fact that we have 2 hurricanes about to hit each other in the Gulf Coast, not to mention, many other climate issues that we faced. I mean, the Republican Party, it's like they're pretending that the world is not falling apart, and that, the pandemic also doesn't exist. So, I mean, how have young people, how are they organizing in terms of this election, in your movement in particular, around climate, in making sure that all voters that might be on the cusp, that they understand how climate is really the most important issue, whether it's staying home or possibly even considering Trump for economic reasons, whatever it is. I mean, how are you mobilizing around that?
Yeah, I think that first, just look at what we've accomplished in the last 4 years in the youth movement. We've brought the subject of climate change into the national conversation. Now, 70% of voters, regardless of their political affiliations, support climate action. It wasn't always like this, of course. We started our activism in a really dark place. Regardless of the administration, we're going to keep protesting and marching. We're going to keep lobbying our politicians for climate policy, and we're going to keep working internationally. But, I think that this is a very important issue for young people. It's the most important issue for my generation, is climate. And so we're looking at our current administration, what we need to change. And we're especially looking for a president who believes in the science and is willing to take the steps to protect our planet. And I think that, as for the GOP, my generation will remember them as the villains in history. Their denial of the greatest problem that humanity has ever faced is absolutely evil.
Well said. Well said. So what kind of pressure points do you see for a Biden administration? Because he hasn't been great on climate. He acknowledges climate change, but...
I've actually been very lucky to be able to work on climate policy, and Biden has adapted one of the most progressive climate policies that we've ever had. And so one thing that I really like about the policy is that it focuses on a just transition to 100% renewable energy. And I think that that is incredibly important, but it also has a center on equity and making sure we protect communities that are being impacted the most. And so I think that it's very important because young people were there putting the pressure on Biden to adapt this plan. And so that shows just how important youth activists are, because we're the ones who are pushing our politicians to adapt these plans. So we need to keep doing what we're doing because we're the ones who really got that climate plan.
How do you hold him responsible so that he's not responsible? How do you hold him accountable if he doesn't follow through?
I think that we'll hold him responsible in many different ways. There's so many youth organizers out there that, we focus on different ways to hold people accountable, but I think that there will be people who are always making sure that he does the right thing for our generation. And if not, there's going to be a mass uprising of young people making sure that he does whether it's the right thing.
So in terms of like social media, I mean, how do you hold a lawmaker accountable? I mean, I want to get in a little bit like more into the specifics because I think people are very curious. I mean, how this activism is forming. Can you do it from your couch without necessarily tapping into an organization?
Yeah, I think that there's, of course, many different ways. One thing that has been very impactful lately with young people is the first step that I recommend to them is find, of course, an organization that you resonate with and you can get involved in the movement that way. But the other thing is to send letters to your representatives, write letters to city council members or, people in bigger positions of power. And on social media, especially, there's always people who are writing these posts about what they want to see from our elected officials. And I think that social media has a really big power in what we're doing because when you're tweeting about the issue that's most important to you, I think that a lot of people go to social media for information. And if you're posting about what needs to happen, that's a great way for more people to get involved and resonate with that. And also push out the message through social media and other areas that they need to be doing a specific action. And social media is very influential, especially to young people, because it's also this form of grassroots, because anybody can use social media and get their message out. And so I think that those in positions of power are looking to social media because we can make our voices heard quite loudly on there.
And you can shame them too, that it becomes a story and gets picked up in many other forms. So in terms of policies, what are like the top 3 policies you want to see prioritized by the Biden administration? And then I have a question about Trump in case he wins, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. I think that there's a lot of different things that I want to see. First of all, renewable energy is very important. Transitioning to renewable energy, getting off of fossil fuels, that's extremely important, especially in the United States, because what the United States has not done is shown that we are a leader internationally on climate. But we must be setting an example, because when people see the United States when we're not doing anything, it's almost as if they view it as a past. And so we need to focus on showing other countries that it is possible, but also international policy is extremely important. I think that the United States has a duty to, there are a lot of countries who are dependent on fossil fuels and helping them get off of those. And internationally, we must be helping make sure that everybody else is renewable. And so internationally, it's extremely important because we must reduce our global greenhouse gas emissions. I also think that one thing about the Biden plan that I really like is how he focuses on climate corps. So that way my generation can grow up and work in these jobs that actually help us restore our planet, so we can firsthand have a part in restoring our planet with what job we have. And so I think that that's another thing that I really like, is how we'll be able to find a ethical job that we can work in.
And then in terms of the Trump administration, if he wins, which hopefully he does not, but like I said in my opening, the polls are exactly where they were, almost exactly where they were with Clinton. So we should be cautious of this. But what are the areas? Where would you pressure him? Like, how do you get Donald Trump to listen? And senators, Republican senators, I'll add that to the mix.
I think that, first of all, with our current administration, they have absolutely not done anything to protect our environment in these past 4 years. They have actually set us back by, they've just done a lot that hasn't actually helped our environment. And I think that that's one thing that young people have always looked towards, is that we haven't really done anything. We got a national emergency for TikTok, but yet we didn't get a national emergency for climate change. Right. Issues like that. And so I think that if Trump does get reelected, there will be even more of a global uprising of young people. Young people are going to be extremely upset that this has happened, because in the past 4 years, this administration has not done anything to protect our environment, and it's extremely upsetting and angering. And so if he does get in office again, there's going to be so many young people upset. And I am sure that we are going to find many different ways to show him how mad we are.
Yeah, he has, George Bush basically eliminated all research in the EPA, as I mentioned on the show yesterday, and I don't even know where Donald Trump is in terms of research. I'm sure he's not only gutted the funding of the EPA, and the staffing of the EPA, the research. So there's just, with a crisis that is so urgent, you're literally taking in air from wildfires, one of the largest wildfires. We have a preserved forest that is part of our identity as a country that is being devastated right now. And it's not just that he's not dealing with the urgency of the matter, he is trying to go back in history to a place where it doesn't exist. It's an alternate history. So the pressure on younger people, my generation, your generation, is immense, and I'm really glad that you guys are organizing. What is coming up for you?
Well, a lot is going to be happening. I'm going to continue making sure that young people are out there voting, and also raising awareness about Biden's climate plan, because I think that this is going to be a very turning moment for us in November, is making sure that we vote. And so that is one thing that's going to be next. I'm going to continue growing Earth Uprising, because I think that it's important for young people to get involved in this movement, and see the urgency of this when looking at the science. And so I think that in this next year, we're going to see a lot more young people get involved, because with all of these wildfires that are happening, so much is happening all around the world. In Iowa, we had a massive windstorm that destroyed nearly the entire state. In California, we had 10,000 lightning strikes that caused 375 fires. And so we're seeing climate change right now. And that is what's going to make more people realize that this is serious and that they need to do something.
Alexandria, I'm so happy that you came on the show today to give us all inspiration, because it's very hard to watch this convention and see what's on the line and see what's been lost. But talking to you as an organizer, a tremendous organizer, who really gives us hope for the future, because that's really what this is about now. So, Alexandria, thank you for joining. I hope to have you back on. Keep us in the loop about future endeavors and future actions. Don't hesitate to reach out to us, because we'd love to highlight your work.
Thank you so much.
And stay safe. We'll be watching. I hope that you get some fresh air, and that we can only hope for the best. I was in wildfires a few months ago. It was not easy, as someone with breathing issues too. So I feel for you. Stay safe.
Thank you. It was great talking with all of you.
Thanks, Alexandria. Up next, we are going to do a panel on a couple things. Our reactions to last night's RNC, and we're going to talk about the assault that the Republican Party has put on working people, whether it's starving resources from public, the post office, for instance, biggest example, or public schools, and his support of monopolies like Amazon. That's going to be up next on the Nomiki Show. We have Chris Smalls and Napoleon de Legend.
Eyes have it.
killing it, who the kid, keeping the gully, scheming, don't get it, the scully, getting kinky, it's the king, got the jungle again, coming with it, knocking out in the cutting, I'm coming to get it, killing the cut in the club with a cup at the kill it, thinking the cutting it up, she's an undercover, freak under the covers, Scully King, McGilly Cuddy, Gorilla Cutter, I'm coming to get it, cunning linguist, don't make elixir for the night when I'm coming to hit it, butterflies in the stomach, you feel the stomach, I feel it, utter the illest, and I'm painted with colors, acrylic, feel it's curriculum, tickling, I should trickling, hyperventilating, no circumventing the commissioner, just like a fish in the river, analytical figure, liquor filtering through the liver, and now she feeling it, yeah, we burn it up, Eclipse, Napoleon, burn it up, yeah,
Please don't flag us, YouTube. Oh man, that was Napoleon the Legend. I went down like a YouTube, rabbit hole of his work. It's like, that's it. That's our lead-in. And because he's on air, I hope they don't flag us. I noticed in your interviews, Napoleon, come on in. I notice in your interviews on different shows, they'll sometimes mute the music or like just leave it out, and then like you have to talk about it. I'm like, how can you reference it? Welcome to the show, Napoleon the Legend, and the one and only Chris Smalls is back. Chris Smalls, of course, is one of the great organizers who took on Amazon fiercely and has really built a movement around it. And I'm so happy that you two are on the show today because what a disaster the convention was yesterday in regards to everyone. But I don't know if you caught my opening, but I talked about how they kept talking about how we as progressives are against America. And it was very clear to me that they just meant like rich white men, the richest white men, basically. So first, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having us on. And I'm happy to see you again. Pleasure.
So great to see you.
Honored to be here.
So honored. So Napoleon, I've watched you on the Michael Brooks show. I think we should start off the show just saying like you did some great work, and Chris did too. Both of you have been on were on Michael Brooks' show, and we reconnected. We connected through his show after his passing, and I'm just really grateful for all you're doing in intersecting different spaces, because I think that's how we brought in our movement and really enlighten folks. I'm just going to, I guess the big question is, what did you guys think of the convention? I don't even know where to go, man.
What a fiasco. I mean, I had to power through watching the whole thing, to be honest with you, mainly also because I was coming here today, but I was like, it was, for somebody like me, it's like, I know it's not directed towards me. So it's even more comical. You know what I'm saying? I know this type of like messaging, it's so ridiculous. And so it's not even based on reality. It feels like they're scaring a lot of people in rural areas and probably white suburban areas, making it seem like people in the city are zombies or bloodthirsty thugs and things like that. And it's very comical, but at the same time, it's kind of scary. Like the level of like the audience that's actually being fed this. You know what I mean? Because they wouldn't say it if it didn't actually, they didn't think it would work on certain people. And it's just the fact that there's no facts at all. It's like whatever we want to say and whatever stats we want to throw at you, it doesn't have to be real or anything. They just know they have such insulated audience that, and that part kind of scares me in a way, because it's like, wow, these people, it's like two different planets.
It's weird because they, there was that part where, like, on one hand, they had a bunch of white people who were just overt racists, and then they'd have like Tim Scott come in and be like, "Oh, don't worry, we're not that racist. That's just those guys." It was a very weird. Like, there was the big tent of the Democratic Party. It's like the big tent of like racists and people like who like don't want to feel like they're racist, but really like Donald Trump's economic policies. I don't know. What do you think, Chris?
Yes, same. Just false narrative, you know. Obviously, this administration had 4 years to prove that they can run this country, and that hasn't happened. And now we're in this position where if we don't get that administration out of office, this country is doomed. It's already doomed. We're already in shambles right now. We're trying to come together as people, and they're not supportive of that at all. And that's why we're in these streets now every single day. Myself, my organization, all the activists, the youth across the nation, we are in these streets because of them. So, you know, that I couldn't even watch the whole thing, to be honest with you. I was more entertained by the memes the next day, you know. Just the simple fact that, you know, this Kimberly, I don't know her last name. Yeah. That was the biggest one for me because, you know, when she say liberty, she didn't even say justice for all, you know.
Right.
It was just like liberty and America. Let's make America the same America spiel. It's like it's not hitting home for us, and this is why it's important this election that we show up. The youth, the Black community, we have to show up and we have to vote and put in office somebody that's going to represent the people.
You know, it was crazy to me because Jacob Blake was just shot multiple times in the back in a state that Donald Trump is literally trying to suppress the vote again, as you know, he did in 2016, Wisconsin and Kenosha. And I mean, his father, Jacob Blake's father, just said that he's going to be paralyzed for life. And there was not one, I mean, they didn't talk about anything yesterday.
Nothing.
That everybody in the country is talking about. The uprisings, the greatest uprising of all time happened in the last few months, and they didn't even reference it. If anything, they said just the opposite. It was that, you know, we're being unruly. Right. I don't know.
It's kind of like passing the blame, you know, like pass the buck. You know, everything is the Democrats' fault. And, you know, I don't give the Democrats a full pass either. You know, There's a lot of issues that they can address too, as far as their convention is concerned. And we are going to hold them accountable. Like you said, the youth is definitely, you know, I've been organizing with the youth for the last 5-6 months, ever since I've been terminated by Amazon and going up against the richest man in the world. The youth and the movement that Bernie Sanders created in this country, it's unrest. We still want to make sure that we follow through with everything that he envisioned for this country to head towards. And I think that right now is a pivotal moment in history for us to make that happen. Because if we don't, we're talking about the end of humanity right here. We're in the end of times as we speak, and we need to make a decision as people whether we're going to prolong that or we're going to speed up the process by keeping this administration.
So we have a clip I want to show you guys and get your reaction, because I nearly fell off my chair when I saw this. Dorsey, can we play the clip of the couple? I don't even say their names.
The Marxist liberal activist leading the mob to our neighborhood stood outside our home with a bullhorn screaming, "You can't stop the revolution." Just weeks later, that same Marxist activist won the Democrat nomination to hold a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. These radicals are not content with marching in the streets. They want to walk the halls of Congress. They want to take over. They want power.
God forbid. We radicals want power.
Marxists. We're Marxists.
The funny thing is, I can't even think of like a single prominent player in the political landscape right now who I would consider a radical leftist that like as prominent that people are actually talking about. So like once again, it's just a total invention and just painting a alternate reality for their voters and for their crowd. And it's funny how even when Trump was speaking, I was noticing he's good at positioning himself as like a populist type candidate in the way he talks. And I think when he talks about trade deals, when he talks about so-called America first, and which whatever that means, right? And I feel like he's trying to also appeal to some of the Bernie voters that might not consider themselves Democrats. Mm-hmm. And it's a shame because I think it's an opportunity lost on our side to get these people, you know, in the way that it's kind of missing in the talk, because the tone last week was more, we're the reasonable ones, we're the nice ones, we're the ones that listen, but it's more to that. It's like, people are out of work. People are worried about paying their rent. People need health care. the planet is dying. Like, what are we doing here? You know?
It's interesting. So there is something there, like they're tapping into the anger of Americans in a way. What I think, looking back at 2016, when Hillary kept saying Bernie's an angry old man, it's like, well, yeah, I want someone to be angry about the state of the country. Whether it works, we don't know. But, you know, Chris, you basically organized a movement in response to the abuses of, as you said, the world's wealthiest man running Amazon. And so, I mean, that's anger. That's real anger. How did you take last week's convention, which seemed to be very warm? They warmed up to monopolies. They warmed up to tech. I mean, who knows who all the sponsors were at the end of the day that we didn't get to see if we'd seen a real convention. What was your take on how the Democrats dealt with the moment?
Yeah, Nina Turner said it best. You know, she highlighted some of the issues that they didn't address as well. They also can, you know, they say a lot of lip action. You know, that's what they're good at, and I want to believe them. I want to believe Biden's speech. I want to believe Harris. I want to believe it, but it's time for them to take action, and that's partnering up with the youth, and I guess you can say just paving the way for us to really make some change in this country. And I'm trying to be the bridge for that. You know, I'm fairly young myself, and I'm a single parent, and I'm unemployed, and I'm organized, and I'm in these streets every day, and I have a movement behind me, and I want to lead us in the right direction. And it's like, who do I follow suit in office right now? You know, I would love to have the mentorship of Bernie Sanders, but obviously, you know, he dropped out of the race. And, you know, there's still progressive leaders like AOC that's still here, and Cori Bush, and, you know, the rest of them. I just would love to make sure that this bridge that I have is connected with the youth, and it's intergenerational. It's not about, you know, the older generation can learn a lot about the youth and how things are changing, and the youth can learn a lot about the history of how we got to this point. So right. I just think with the bridge that I have and the movement that I have, the Democratic Party needs to make sure that they address that right. at all costs, because this election right here, this is what it's about. You know, if you don't win over the votes of the youth, it's a possibility that Trump will be here another 4 years. And don't be fooled by the polls and the numbers that the media is going to put out there. It's a lot closer than people think. And people got to understand that it can sway either way. And we have these, 50 days left, 60 days left to make sure that we hone in on the real movement behind these votes. And that is our youth. That is the Black community. We need them to show up and support the right candidate.
So in 2016, I was looking at some of the numbers the other day, and the Clinton campaign and maybe the media, MSNBC, whoever, kept painting all these other people as who lost the election, white suburban women. That was who Trump wanted, and he did get, because in many cases they historically have voted with their white suburban male partners. Right. So it wasn't really off trend, but she really wanted them, just like Joe Biden really wants some Republicans. But what they forgot about, and maybe they took for granted, of course, were working people, not just working people of all backgrounds, working white people, working Black people, working Latinos, everybody. And you could see it in Wisconsin in particular, which has the biggest segregation in the country, and we're seeing it this week, obviously, with the way police have responded. So I think you're spot on, and it really is about but it's on them to figure it out. Napoleon, what I find so interesting about your work is how your politics has really informed your music, and your activism has been informed by music, and your personal story too. So how do you make that bridge? Like Chris is talking about the bridge with youth that he's working with right now. How do you use your art as the bridge to inform the electorate?
Yeah, I think it's a fine line you have to walk, because it's like I tackle a wide spectrum of topics in the music that I make. but I'm also very personal, and I'm also very, very transparent about where I stand, about what my worldview is, and what I feel in the ways that society is kind of failing a lot of us, and meaning the working class, and talking about class struggle. I like to add ideas in my songs as not to sound preachy, but to also to show people, to put them into my world and my perspective of how I feel like the world should be. And the opportunity is there. The resources are there for everybody to be living a decent life. And we see examples in different places. And right now, it's tough because a lot of people some of the people that listen to hip hop, they're kind of apolitical, and rightfully so. I don't blame them. They feel like they've been let down by the government. They feel like they've been disenfranchised historically, their parents, their grandparents, and you name it. And so slowly but surely, I think it's about educating people and showing them that, look, we can fight on all fronts. Chris is on the street advocating. There's artists that talk about these things, and you can really get material benefits from a change of politics in your country, and we have the numbers. And sometimes I don't think they realize that, and a lot of people tend to think, just empirical, I haven't made a study, but this is what I'm noticing, is that politics is only Trump Biden. When it's like politics is local. Politics is like what Chris is doing. Politics is like the local government, the judges. It's different things that could really affect what's going on in your neighborhood and what's going on in your life. And depending on what the music asks for, I speak about these things. I think it's important. I mean, life is short. I want to be able to let people know who I am. I don't just want to be an empty shell that just, spits dope rhymes at you,
How are people responding? Like, have you noticed that folks are getting engaged?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's sometimes it might cause a little bit of arguments. Like I feel like the path of least resistance is probably not to even get into politics and things like that, because politics is by nature polarizing. But at the same time, I think it creates a conversation, and I'm starting to see also a community of people who think like me, getting into what I'm doing with my music and starting to share, and young people telling me, like, I had these thoughts, but I haven't heard any artists like tackle these subjects that you're talking about in your music. And I think that's how we create awareness in the world, because we're the ones that really promote like the type of culture that the culture and quote unquote. So it's important for us to have a good worldview, because I used to tell Michael Brooks this. Both became friends because of our love of hip hop and music. And the hip hop that we love, it was like full on in the neoliberal times, and music reflects what's going on in society. So we heard these songs a million times about rappers talking about personal wealth, about stepping on each other to get to the top, and this and that. And I think now it's time to talk about the collective. Like Public Enemy used to do it back in the day. There's rappers like KRS-One, there's Wise Intelligent. A lot of artists used to promote these values, their press. And I think I really want to carry on that tradition to the now and what's going on right now.
Just one quick follow-up to that. I'm just curious. Does the man tell you not to talk about these things? Like, there was definitely a shift, and I'm sure it was reflective of the times, but I've heard about Bernie supported artists from 2016 who almost lost ads because they were talking too much about Bernie. Like, they would do like makeup ads or hair ads or whatever it is.
Well, I think everything is political, even when you get into the entertainment world. I'm not at a level where somebody's telling me what to say or not to say, but I know it's a lot easier. Like I said, that the path of least resistance is to talk about some mindless stuff and just straight go escapism. And I have songs like that too, don't get me wrong. But I think that, let me give you an example. Just the other day, just this week, it was publicized from a documentary on HBO Max that, I don't know if you've heard of Yusuf Hawkins. It was a 16-year-old black male. He was quote unquote lynched in Brooklyn, Bensonhurst, by a mob of 20 or 30 Italian men, right? White men. the guy involved in that killing ended up being an executive at Hot 97 in New York. So, and for years, and he just got fired the other day because this documentary came out. So when you think about things like this, the type of music that's being thrown out there, and some of the individuals that are in places of power, it makes you think. Like, I don't have proof. I don't know what they're thinking, but you see that there's somebody that's obviously racist is promoting at a black station, promoting that type of music. So it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Wow. Chris, you're dealing with that right now. Like, what kind of pressure are you feeling right now from the Amazon world and beyond?
Not so much of the pressure anymore. You know, the first time I spoke to you, I was fairly new into the organizing, and I had a lot to deal with back then. You know, trying to figure out my life, reconfigure my life, and I made a decision well before my walkout on March 30th. I made that decision against the company probably years ago. You know, if you think about, just working for the richest man in the world, and when I was in that environment, I wasn't really paying attention to the outside noise about how this company affects the surrounding communities, how it raises property value, how it exploits its workers. I was a part of the problem, and I'm gonna be honest with you. I was working for Amazon. I was a dedicated, loyal employee. I did my job. I did it well, but I knew that I didn't fit in with that culture there. The culture there is very brainwashing. The same thing you see the propaganda commercials on media ads. They do the same thing within their workforce. The principles they teach people, the way you have to work. If you don't work to their standards, you won't make it. You won't last. It's like solitary confinement, working there for 10 hours a day. You don't see outside unless you take a 30-minute break, which is really 15 minutes if you walk these large buildings what are 40 NFL football fields sometimes. It was really a depressing situation that I was in already. I found my calling when I got terminated. And when I realized that the richest man in the world is having a conversation about smearing me, and it's racially injustice and racially profiling, I knew I was making some good trouble. And that's just what I'm about now. I'm about good trouble all day, every day. You know, I'm going to DC. We was just out in front of Jeff Bezos' property in New York City last week. I created my own organization, TCOEW, the Congress of Essential Workers, a collective of workers that are former, current, and all workers from all different backgrounds, different companies. And we're just continue to move. And we're going to DC this week. We're going to be there in front of Jeff Bezos' house on Thursday, advocating. And we're going to have a guillotine set up. And this is what it's about, applying pressure from all different angles, through the music, through artwork, through props, through having our boots on the ground, whichever way, putting pressure on these congressmen that send over these letters on my behalf. I'm calling all of them out too. You know, they all signed up these letters and sent them to Jeff Bezos, but there's no action behind them. So I'm tired of the Democrats, once again, with the lip service. It's now to put your money where your mouth is and tax the wealth, tax these billionaires, so this country can get back to where it's supposed to be. And that is to not be half unemployed. That's ridiculous. And there's about 4 people that have more wealth than the entire country. That's ridiculous. And the world needs to wake up. The country needs to wake up. This can't go on like this. So that's what I'm about.
Folks are feeling it, and I think like it's folks like you, it's folks like Napoleon who are teaching them what's happening and where to go, because they feel it, and then they got to wake up, and it's people like us that are helping people maneuver that waking up. And whether it's Biden or Trump, we got to put pressure on, whether it's pressuring the Democrats to be more forceful or just going full guillotine with Trump. That's what we got to do. And that's why we wanted to do the show this way. You guys, final thoughts on the rest of the week?
Yeah.
Man,
Oh, go ahead, brother.
It's gonna be hard to watch. And one thing I forgot to say, I hate how they use like a few black people and just just to make us feel like it's okay, you guys. You could come on this side, and I didn't appreciate when Tim Scott said from the cotton picking to Congress, and it's that whole mentality where it's like, if I win, we all win. No, it's not that. We win when we win. Okay, just because you made it doesn't mean that the vast majority of people are not struggling. So that type of pandering is just it's very disrespectful. I don't appreciate it.
Agree. And my final thoughts on that is just take it with a grain of salt. This administration is not what we want, people. And I just hope we realize that. And what I can say from my opinion, I'm not really too political as well. I'm more radical and progressive. So I'm just saying, vote for who you feel represents you, and don't vote for, the BS. So, let's just continue doing what we're doing. We have to, once again, just continue to mobilize. There's still Black men being shot down on the streets every day in this country. We have to continue to fight. That's just what we have to do.
Chris, where can we find your work?
Absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter, shut_down Amazon. Also TCOEW, at TCOEW on Twitter as well. Instagram, same thing, at TCOEW, or Chris.Smalls_. And my website is up, tcoew.org.
Napoleon, where can we find your work?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Team NDL. It's Napoleon DA Legend, so Team NDL. NapoleonDALegend.com. You can find my music, my videos, everything. I'm very prolific. I put out a lot of music. I just put out an album called Street Universe. I got another one called Stuff for Legend coming out in a few weeks. And man, we're always gonna keep telling that truth. We're truth sayers over here. You know what I mean?
So grateful to you guys. Truth to power. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining us today and helping us deal with the Trumpster fire. So
absolutely.
Thank you.
Solidarity, y'all.
Solidarity. Safe. All right, guys, that's it for the second day of coverage. We're going to be watching tonight, and tomorrow we have a wonderful show. We have the one and only Linda Sarsour, dear friend. We were Bernie surrogates together. We're on the trail together. We're going to have a great interview talking about her work and pressuring the Democrats, and beyond, and her movement work. And then we're going to have a panel with Rick Unger, who's a Democrat who used to be on air with me all the time. I'm very curious to hear his perspective because he used to host a show with Republicans. And then we have Swin Subsang, who is a reporter at the Daily Beast, who's done a lot of reporting on Donald Trump and his conflicts of interest, and the one and only Randy Bryce, who of course is Iron Stash. He ran against Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan got out of the race, got out of Congress, was scared to death of iron worker Randy Bryce. That's on tomorrow's show. You don't want to miss it at 3 p.m. Eastern. Make sure to click like and subscribe and the little bell to go ding ding when our show goes live. And if you're not a patron, join us on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show. Love to you all. We will see you tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern.
Who the kid? Keeping the gully scheming, don't get it. It's gully getting kinky. It's the king of the jungle again. Coming with it, I conniving and cunning. I'm coming to get it. Killing the cut in the club with a cup at the killer, thinking the cutting it up. She's an undercover freak under the covers. Scully King, McGilly Cuddy, Gorilla Cutter. I'm coming to get it. Cunning linguist. Don't make elixir for the night when I'm coming to hit it. Butterflies in the stomach, you feel the stomach. I feel it, utter the illest, and I paint it with colors acrylic. Feel its curriculum tickling. I should trickling, hyperventilating, no circumventing the